There are 3 motorcycles that dealerships quietly hope you never ask about. They're not rare. They're not exotic. 2 of them are probably sitting within 20 miles of you right now, priced at less than a decent used lawn tractor. And every one of them can do about 90% of what a $15,000 bike does, for a fraction of the money, for years, without asking for anything in return. And here's the uncomfortable part. The salesman knows these bikes exist. He knows exactly how good they are. Some of the mechanics in the back own one themselves. But when you walk onto that showroom floor with $4,000 and an honest question, you will somehow never hear about any of them. You'll hear about financing. You'll hear about the new model year. You'll hear the phrase, "you'll outgrow it." By the end of this video, you'll know all 3 bikes, you'll know exactly why the industry keeps them quiet, and stick around for the last section. You'll know how to actually buy one without getting burned, including the one sentence that changes how a dealership treats you. Number 3 is the bike mechanics buy for themselves and almost never recommend out loud. It might be the least exciting motorcycle ever built, and that's precisely the point. But first, you need to understand one thing about how a dealership actually makes money. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it, and every bike they push at you suddenly makes perfect sense. A dealership is not in the motorcycle business. It's in 3 businesses stacked on top of each other. Business 1, the margin on new bikes and the financing. That 5-year loan you sign? There's often more profit in the paperwork than in the machine. Business 2, accessories and add-ons. The exhaust, the luggage, the chrome, the protection package they slide in at the desk. Business 3, the quiet giant, the service department. Valve checks, fluid changes, tires, diagnostics. That's the revenue that comes back every season, year after year, like clockwork. Now ask yourself a simple question. What is the worst possible customer for that business model? It's the guy who buys a cheap, used, bulletproof motorcycle that never breaks, never needs the service department, and never makes him feel like he's missing out on something newer. That guy is a disaster on 2 wheels, for the spreadsheet. Every bike on this list creates exactly that guy. That's the whole secret. These aren't hidden because they're bad. They're hidden because they're too good at being enough. Let's start with number 1, the Suzuki SV650. If motorcycles were judged honestly on what they actually do for the money, this thing would have a statue outside every riding school in America. It's been in production in one form or another since 1999. 25 years. And in 25 years, nobody has managed to build a better answer to the question, what if I just want one bike that does everything? Here's what you get. A snarling little V-twin making around 75 horsepower, which sounds modest until you remember it weighs about as much as a mountain bike compared to the big stuff. Enough punch to scare you if you ask for it. Light enough to flick through traffic. Comfortable enough for a weekend trip. Simple enough that a guy with a socket set and a YouTube tutorial can do most of the maintenance in his own garage. And the used market is flooded with them. Because they sold by the boatload for 2.5 decades, you can find clean, running, well-kept SV650S all day long for around $3,500 to $4,500. That is not a typo. That's a complete, proven, do-everything motorcycle for the price of a set of fancy carbon wheels. So why does the salesman glide right past it? Listen for the magic phrase. They call it a great beginner bike. That's the kill shot. In dealer language, beginner bike means something you'll be embarrassed to still own in 2 years, which conveniently sets up your next purchase, the $12,000 one. Here's what they don't say. Experienced riders keep coming back to the SV650. Track day guys run them. Couriers run them into 6 figures on the odometer. Calling it a beginner bike isn't a description. It's a sales strategy. Because if beginner bike is where the journey starts, then the journey has to go somewhere more expensive. And if the SV is simply enough forever, then the upgrade ladder collapses. And the upgrade ladder is the business. And living with one is the part nobody tells you about. Insurance on a 15-year-old SV650 costs about as much as a pizza habit. Tires come in normal sizes that don't require a second mortgage. Parts are everywhere. New, used, aftermarket. Because the world is full of these bikes and always has been. When something wears out, you type the part number into your phone and it shows up in 2 days for the price of a dinner. Compare that to the exotic stuff, where a single body panel has a waiting list and a 3-digit price tag, and you start to understand what cheap to buy versus cheap to own actually means. The SV is both. That combination is rarer than any limited edition. Number 2. The Suzuki V-Strom 650. And this one is going to annoy some people, because this is the bike that quietly embarrasses the entire adventure bike industry. You've seen the adventure dream. The commercials with a loaded-up bike on a mountain pass in Mongolia. The $20,000 flagship machines with electronic suspension, 6 riding modes, radar, heated everything. The industry has spent 2 decades convincing America that adventure requires a small mortgage. Meanwhile, the V-Strom 650 has been in production since 2004, using. And here's the beautiful part. Essentially, that same beloved V-twin from the SV650, retuned and proven across literally millions of road miles. It is, by broad agreement of the people who actually ride around the world instead of talking about it, one of the great long-distance machines of our time. Not because it's spectacular, because it never, ever stops. Riders have crossed continents on V-Stroms. They commute on them through winters. The owners' forums are full of bikes with astronomical mileage wearing their original engines. It carries luggage, it takes a passenger, it shrugs off dirt roads, it sips fuel, and it costs, used in good shape, around $4,000 to $5,500. The adventure dream, the real one, the one where you actually go somewhere, is available for the price of the accessory catalog on the flagship bike. And that's exactly the problem. When you walk into the showroom wearing your new adventure dream, the last thing anyone wants is for you to discover that a 20-year-old design at $1/4, the price does 90% of the job. The flagship needs you to believe the missing 10% is the whole point. So the V-Strom sits in the corner, if it's on the floor at all, while you get walked toward the bike with the radar and the payment plan. Nobody's lying to you. Exactly. They're just editing. And the community around this bike tells you more than any spec sheet. Go read a V-Strom forum for 10 minutes. You won't find arguments about lap times or dyno charts. You'll find a guy asking how to mount a 3rd fuel can for a desert crossing, and 5 replies from people who've already done it. You'll find odometer photos posted like fishing trophies. 6 digits, original engine, original clutch. You'll find retirees riding to Alaska and back on a bike that costs them less than the tax on a new flagship. That's not a customer base. That's a quiet rebellion. And every single one of them is a customer the industry lost 20 years ago and never got back. Because once a rider learns that the dream doesn't require the payment, he doesn't unlearn it. And now, number 3, the one the mechanics buy. The Honda NC750X. I want you to think about the most boring kitchen appliance you own. The one that just works. You never think about it, you never service it, it never surprises you, and it will probably outlive your marriage. Now imagine Honda turned that philosophy into a motorcycle, on purpose. That's the NC750X, and it might be the most quietly subversive machine Honda has ever built. The engine is a low-revving twin that was famously developed with technology derived from Honda's car engines. Deliberately understressed, deliberately simple, tuned for grunt down low instead of glory up high. The result reads like a misprint. Fuel economy that owners routinely report near 70 miles per gallon. Maintenance intervals so long you'll forget where the shop is. A riding character so unbothered, so relentlessly smooth, that reviewers have spent a decade calling it boring, while its owners rack up commuting miles for pennies and laugh all the way past the gas station. Oh, and where the fuel tank should be? Storage. A cavernous compartment where a full-face helmet goes. The actual tank sits under the seat. It's the most practical design decision on any motorcycle in a generation, and the industry basically pretended it didn't happen. There's even an automatic version, Honda's dual-clutch transmission, for riders who just want to twist and go. Mechanics love this machine for exactly the reason the sales floor can't sell it. There is nothing to fix and nothing to add. You can find used ones in the $4,000 to $5,000 range, often with lovingly documented service history, because NC owners are exactly that kind of people. Now here's the part where the whole picture snaps into focus. Boring, in showroom language, is not a fact about the motorcycle. It's a fact about the invoice. A bike that never visits the service department, never needs an exhaust to fix its character, never makes its owner feel behind. That bike is boring the way a paid-off house is boring. The service department's favorite customer is an exciting motorcycle. The mechanic, spending his own money on his own time, he buys the boring one. That should tell you everything. Do the commuting math on this thing? Because it's genuinely absurd. Say you ride 30 miles a day to work. On a thirsty bike or an SUV, that's serious gas money, every single week, forever. On the NC, at close to 70 miles per gallon, your fuel bill turns into a rounding error. Owners talk about filling the tank and honestly forgetting when they last did it. Stack that with insurance priced for a sensible commuter, maintenance you can nearly ignore, and a purchase price under $5,000. And the NC750X isn't really competing with other motorcycles at all. It's competing with your car, and beating it so badly it's embarrassing. There are owners who report the bike effectively paid for itself in fuel savings alone within a few years. Name another vehicle that does that. So look at what these three machines have in common, because this is the actual lesson of this video. Bigger than any one bike. Every one of them is a proven design that stayed in production for decades because it worked. Every one of them is common enough that the used market keeps prices honest. Every one of them can be maintained in a home garage. And every one of them permanently removes its owner from the upgrade treadmill. The SV kills the "you'll outgrow it" pitch. The V-Strom kills the flagship fantasy. The NC kills the service department. Three different bikes, one identical crime. They end the relationship where the dealership makes its money. The best bike for you and the best bike for their spreadsheet are almost never the same machine. And now you know how to spot the difference. When a salesman glides past something cheap and proven without slowing down, that glide is information. And here's one more tell, in case you need it. Try taking any of these three bikes, TO a dealership as a trade-in. Watch the offer. A clean SV650 that private buyers will fight over at $4,000 gets appraised like scrap metal. Suddenly it's hard to move. Not much demand for these. Best I can do is $1,500. Funny, isn't it? The same industry that won't show you these bikes when you're buying also won't pay for them when you're selling. Both behaviors have the same explanation. There's no room in these machines for anyone's margin but yours. When both the buying pitch and the trade-in lowball point in the same direction, that's not an opinion anymore. That's a confession. Now, before the practical part, honesty time, because this channel doesn't do fairy tales. Who should not buy these three bikes? If you live for the top-end rush, that moment a sport bike's engine goes feral at 12,000 RPM. The NC will bore you, and the SV will only mostly satisfy you. Buy the sport bike, just buy it used and let someone else eat the depreciation. If you're two up with full luggage crossing mountain ranges at 80 miles an hour, a 650 twin will feel like it's working for a living, because it is. That's the one honest use case for the big bore stuff. And if you buy bikes as jewelry, if the badge and the parking lot glances are the actual product, then no spreadsheet will ever talk you out of it. And that's fine too. It's your money. Just make sure you're buying the bike because you want it, not because a man whose paycheck depends on it told you the cheap one was beneath you. All right, you stayed this far. So here's the practical part. How to actually buy one of these without getting burned. First, where to look. The best examples are almost never on dealer floors. Dealers lowball these bikes at trade-in for the exact reasons we've covered, so the good ones change hands privately. Owner forums, club classifieds, and private listings are your hunting ground. And winter is your season. Prices on the used market sag when the riding stops, and sellers get lonely. Second, what to check. The beauty of all three bikes is that their problems are cheap and visible, not expensive and hidden. Look at the basics. Chain and sprockets, tire date codes, brake fluid the color of iced tea means neglect, service records, or at least an owner who can talk about the bike like he actually rode it. On any high mileage example, a cold start tells you more than an hour of conversation. These engines are famous for starting instantly and settling into a calm idle. If it doesn't, walk. There are always more of them. That's the luxury of buying common. Third, the one sentence. If you do find yourself at a dealership and the steering towards something shinier begins, look the salesman in the eye and say, "I'm not financing anything. What do you have used under $5,000 that your mechanics would ride?" Watch what happens. You've just told him the paperwork profit is off the table and invited the back of the shop into the conversation. Half the time, the tone of the entire visit changes. Sometimes a bike you were never going to be shown suddenly exists. And if it doesn't, you've lost nothing. Because the entire point of these three machines is that you never needed the showroom in the first place. One last thing before the comments. This list is 3 bikes long, but this category, cheap, proven, quietly resented by the sales floor, is way bigger than 3. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely read every answer. What's your number 4? The bike you own or owned that just refused to die, cost nothing, did everything. The one no salesman ever pointed you toward. Drop the model and the mileage below. If enough of you weigh in, part 2 builds itself, straight from the people who actually ride. And if you've got a friend who's about to walk into a dealership with $4,000 in good intentions, send him this before he signs anything. You might save him $10,000 in a 5-year loan. Ride smart. The best bikes were never on the front row anyway.